Lozano here, Christ Center Capital. I wanted to make a video today detailing my own personal financial journey. A lot of people know my conversion story from atheism to Christianity, but I've never really gotten into the weeds of the financial journey that took place alongside that conversion. Um, If anybody's interested in the conversion story, you can check it out at the Coming Home Network, EWTN, the Capturing Christianity YouTube channel, the Christ Center Capital website, and a couple other places. But let's talk about the financial journey because I think it's really important because it gives context to how Christ Center Capital came to be, how uh, my own my own thinking about finance has evolved or changed, and can give a little bit of insight into how the Christian ethic, how Christian virtues influence every aspect of life, not just, that hour on Sunday. So, as most people know, and as I already stated, I was an atheist convert to Christianity. I was actually an atheist convert to like a mere Christianity and then eventually to Catholicism. But I was an atheist pretty much all through high school and then all through most of college, grad school and undergrad. And I was originally given a scholarship to be a mathematical engineer, and I changed my major to economics because I thought I could make more money in the financial industry, whether it be as a broker, investment banker, or something like that. And the reason I did that was solely to make money. Like I was of the mindset that amassing as much wealth and as much recognition as possible was the purpose of life. Very sad way to live. Um, Very miserable way to live, but that was my mindset as a teenager and young 20 somethings. And as as you know, like I had a conversion to Christianity, and when those Christian moral convictions started to take root, my perspective on a lot of things, including finance, changed drastically. So I'm finishing up my grad school studies. I now have degrees in finance and economics, and I am looking for a job in the financial industry. Now, my intellectual conversion is already starting to take place at this point. So a little bit of my mindset has changed, but I started looking for a job in the financial industry, broker, investment banker, something along those lines. And I ended up going in a completely different route because of pure laziness. This has nothing to do with my Christian moral convictions. I said, I don't want to be, a stockbroker. I don't want to be an investment banker because I got a little taste of how many hours they were putting in and what their lifestyle was like. And I said, hey, it's not for me. Again, nothing to do with any kind of moral conviction. It was just, I'd rather have my weekends and nights more free and not be as stressed out. Just a pure laziness standpoint. Um, and I guess thank God I was somewhat lazy. But I ended up taking jobs as like a analysis for analyst, a financial analyst for a couple low end, corporation, a couple low end jobs in the corporate world. I worked for healthcare industries. I worked for local governments. And then eventually I landed the job at the NBA. So I was working in the NBA's business operations department, and I was investing for myself on the stock market, and I was trading cryptocurrency, and I was, making my biweekly paycheck at the NBA, and I was doing pretty well financially, especially for, somebody in their mid to late 20s. And I was already married at this point. I had just gotten married. We had um, our first daughter, our second daughter was on the way, and eventually the intellectual conversion became a full-fledged emotional and spiritual conversion, and those Christian moral convictions really started to take root in me, and I realized the ways that I was making money, whether it be via the NBA paycheck, whether it be the speculation in the crypto world, or whether it be investing in the stock market into, you know, bad companies and just the stock market in general. I realized all the ways I was making money were somewhat illicit and not really in alignment with Christian with the Christian tradition. So again, when these moral convictions took root, I had to. I am a impulsive person, and for better or worse, and I stopped. I put my 2 week notice into the NBA. I liquidated all my investments in the market. I even liquidated my the 401k that I had with the NBA, my retirement plan, and of course, paid the fees and everything, because if hopefully you can tell by looking at me, I'm not in my 60s or of age to withdraw a retirement account without taking those penalties. And um, yeah, so I liquidated everything, gave my 2 week notice into the NBA, and I thought to myself, all right, what do I do now? Because I knew that the ways I was making money were bad, but I still wanted to make a lot of money. And of course, as my family's growing and I'm purchasing a home and all this kind of stuff, right? So by the time I left the NBA and liquidated all the investments, I now have 2 young daughters. My wife, who is pretty much a stay-at-home mom at this point, given 2 young children. She's pregnant with our third child. We had just bought our first home, and we just bought our first puppy. So it was a expensive time in our life where I divested and left my job. And the thought process here was, all right, I need to now find someplace else that, and some other form of investing that is going to make a lot of money and support the family and still help us to live the luxurious lifestyle that we wanted to live and achieve. Or more so, I wanted to. I probably forced that upon my wife. She always had a better intuition than me. And so I thought I could still invest in the stock market. I thought I could still play around with the cryptocurrency if I was doing so in a more conscious way, in a more morally conscious way. And I was still looking for other forms of investment. I was still looking for other jobs that could match my salary demands. And then I started Christ Center Capital as a stock picking website. And you guys know how this story goes, right? If you're watching this video, you're probably familiar with what Christ Center Capital is and how it has evolved from a stock picking website to more of a true Christian investing philosophy site. We do a lot of philosophical posts regarding money and how Christians should engage with their wealth and the economic world around them. So not only did I leave what I would have called my 17-year-old self's dream job, not only did I liquidate some investments that were doing well and had the potential to do even better, not only did I uh, withdraw my retirement investments, and I ended up starting a business, charging a subscription fee for it, and then making it completely free and changing the business model. So everywhere I turned, and all this wasn't just me doing things on a whim, it was a lot of prayer, a lot of contemplation, a lot of talks with my wife, and trying to figure out, all right, how are we going to, provide for the family? How are we going to achieve our financial goals? but also a lot of prayer and God directing us. And everywhere I turned, I had to either myself cut off a revenue generator for my family, or I had to look in the other direction and not pursue a certain avenue that could provide revenue for my family. So I was getting a little spiritually frustrated because I'm like, what do I need to do? And I learned that what our Lord, I believe, was communicating to me was that I needed to I thought I was drastically changing my mindset when it came to finances. But really I was just shifting a little bit off to the left or a little bit off to the right. Because I was like, oh, I left the NBA because that seemed to be somewhat of a morally toxic environment. So let me just find another job that's going to make as much money. But I never gave too much thought to like what that job would be or entail. I said, oh, I divested this because I knew that like Apple and Microsoft was bad, but I could still invest in something else if I found good quality stocks and everything. But what our Lord was communicating to me was no, you need to really, really do a complete 180 here and reevaluate your relationship to wealth, to finance. And this is where, the realization comes that we need to live within our means and we need to live simply. Um, I talk to a lot of financial coaches, and so many of them, some of them are Christian, some of them are not. And so many of them just come in and they tell me, they're like, people just don't know how to live simplistically. And I think that is the biggest problem that we face as a culture today. I mean, everyone's heard if you're a follower of Father Mike Schmitz, I'm going to regurgitate a story from him right now. But we have there's a man living in China. He is a devout Catholic. Uh, he has to attend an underground church because the communist government there suppresses it. And he is caught one day and is essentially tortured in order to give up the location of the priest and the other parishioners of the underground church. He doesn't do it. Eventually, he gets released after however many months or years. And he, by the grace of God, I suppose, or luck of the draw, is able to come to America. And when he gets here, he starts a business. The business does somewhat well. And within, I think it's 5 years of living in the United States, he no longer attends Mass. He no longer is a practicing Catholic. He's no longer really a Christian by any definition. And so, what torture and fear of, you know, the murder of his family, his friends, his priests couldn't do, our American culture could do very indiscreetly. And I know I'm rambling here a little bit, but stick with me on these points. We live in a society right now where you could be below the poverty line, you could be considered impoverished by our country's standards, and you could also be obese. That is a wild thing to think about. And what it tells you is we live in complete and utter abundance. The only reason that anyone in the US falls into financial strife is because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're too involved in what my good friend Bud McFarlane calls the mesh. Bud McFarlane, you might know, he's a Catholic novelist, very good Catholic novelist. Highly suggest his work. Shout out to Bud. He talks about the mesh. He talks about how our world, our society is just encased in this mesh of the financial industry, of the internet, of the politics, of the government, is of big tech, of all these monopolies. It's like it's so hard to get out of this idea where we're always trying to keep up with the Joneses. We're always thinking we need the new iPhone, we need a new car, we need a bigger house, we need so many of these things. And the reality is, we don't need any of those things. We need our Lord, and that's it. And so, this is a really long way of saying God was communicating to me that even though I had my intellectual conversion, even though I had my spiritual and emotional conversion, even though I took some action and left my job and divested, I still needed to change the way that I was thinking about wealth in a very drastic way. And this is where I set those financial goals, threw them in the trash. I um, had the long conversation with my wife, or it wasn't really a long conversation because she's always been a couple steps ahead of me on the spiritual journey, and that we're gonna really rethink the way in which we operate in the world, because if we're just constantly concerned about saving up money for retirement so we can go on a nice vacation when we're 75, we're constantly concerned about investing for the future so that our money doesn't deteriorate because of inflation, but usually investing for the future is something that causes inflation. Uh, all of these things are just not even secondary. They should be back of the bus. They should be run over by the bus. We need to be thinking about what our Lord wants us to do in the here and now. As he tells the rich young man, sell everything you have and follow me. And now, of course, my wife and I at this point, we have 4 kids. God willing, hopefully we can have more. But and we still need to provide for them. But do we need to pay for their college? Do we need to buy all of them a new car when they turn 16? Do we need to live in a 2,500 square foot house? Do we need to live in a 3,000 square foot house? Do we need to um, have brand new cars that we drive? Do we need the best laptop or the best phones? And the answer to all these things is no, we don't. It's better that our kids share a room and we live in a 1,200 square foot house than it is that we live in a 2,500 square foot house where they could have their own bedrooms. It's better that we just have a used car. It's way better for the environment. Um, to buy a used car and drive it into the ground is 100% better for the green movement if you're passionate about that sort of thing than even buying a Tesla. Um, we just need laptops or phones that really get the job done. I mean, listen, I'm out here communicating via a YouTube channel, and I just have an app that sets up my phone as my webcam, and I'm able to talk that way to you guys. The quality's probably not as great as some of these other channels out there, but you get the message across. Um, so I'm saying all this to say, like, we need to live simplistically. Like, if we and pursue our Lord over everything else and stop being concerned and busied with all of these things that the world around us is telling us to be concerned with, that the mesh is telling us to be concerned with, because the mesh is the enemy's camp and we live in the enemy's camp. So I'm gonna wrap all this stuff up here in a couple seconds here, but living simplistically was the big realization that I had through prayer when concerning finance. I was someone who, in not too long ago, had really, really big ambitions. And I was close to achieving some of those ambitions, financially speaking. But I was always worried. I was always concerned. I always had some kind of anxiety about it. And now I live in Northeast Pennsylvania. I'm gonna be very candid right here. I live in Northeast Pennsylvania. It's not the cheapest place in the world to live. It's not also nor is it the most expensive. I have 4 children. My wife is pretty much a stay-at-home wife. She does not, have a giant income from anything. We have about I want to say a 1,300 square foot house. I would say that is. We have a finished attic, so maybe a little bit bigger. We have one used car that we share and drive around. I sank a lot of money into Christ Center Capital, but since making it free and then changing the dynamic of Christ Center Capital, we've lost a lot of revenue from that. It's not a huge money maker. Christ Center Capital literally makes under $1,000 a month. So, and of course, we still put together the newsletter. We still monitor the market. We still produce the content, and it's a big volunteer effort. And I work for a couple different Catholic parishes, managing their money and their like operations, um, and buildings and everything. And all in all, I mean, I'm gonna be again perfectly candid here. Like, we make as a family around 60K a year, and we're not going hungry. My wife and I still go out on, the date days or date nights. We call them date days. Usually it's during the day because paying a babysitter to put all 4 kids to sleep is that can be a little expensive. So yeah, and I'm so much more relaxed, so much more content taking on this sort of simplistic lifestyle. And I think now compared back to when I had much more financial potential in my life, how much more relaxed I am, how much less anxiety I have. And maybe the big kicker is when my wife and I are in our 70s and maybe I can't work anymore and we're a bit destitute and we don't have money to pay the bills. Maybe that happens. But I don't believe it will, because if we're continually trying to pursue our Lord in all things that we do, I believe He'll provide because He tells us so in the Gospels. All right, couple house cleaning things. I'm wrapping it there. Couple house cleaning things. We're still doing the newsletter every Wednesday. That's the bread and butter. Go check that out. It gives some great timely information. There are stock picks in the newsletter. I don't really write up on them, but we still have our monitoring system. We think it's important to know what stocks are going up or are predicted to go up because it kind of lets you know what's going on in the financial world or even culturally. Um, so go check out the newsletter. I'm still going to try and do a video at least once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. The the posts on the site are going to be a bit sporadic over the next couple months because I'm working most of my time when, like I said, Christ Center Capital is really a labor of love. It's a volunteer effort. Most of the time I get to put to Christ Center Capital is going to be on writing the book. So we're writing a book, The Christian Case Against the Stock Market. Um, Hopefully it'll be somewhat of a short read, but a digestible read. And if you're in agreement with us, hopefully we can give it to people for free, and you can share it with the friends and the family and all that good stuff. But that's where most of the effort's going. So there's not going to be a whole lot of posts on the website in the next couple of months, but we're still going to try and do the videos. And of course, the newsletter does come out every Wednesday. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope that my rambling helped in some way. If it didn't, give us a like and subscribe anyway, right? All right. God bless. Thank you guys. Appreciate you listening.